Well, welcome to Becoming More, where you too can become more by learning from other people, which is the very best way to learn. See, we can make our own mistakes or we can learn through others' mistakes. We can also learn from their successes. And today, let me tell you, if you have ever been stuck, if you've ever felt like you were burned out or sacrificed, maybe your family, your faith, your health, to achieve where you're at today, well, you are on the right podcast. Today, I have with my dear friend, Sky Streety. Sky, you and I have known each other for a long time. That doesn't mean we're old, however. We just got to see each other every day, right?
Yes,
well,
ma'am.
Let me tell you, I know, Sky, you launched a highly successful multi-million-dollar litigation support company, and you left all of that to become a high-capacity leaders performance coach. What? Why? Why did you leave this great company? Well, I can understand litigation with today's world, yet you did that for 17 years, and then you went out and you became a John Maxwell certified coach back in 2013, and you've been coaching ever since. So let's start out with, why did you leave where you were at?
Thank you for asking that question. And I just want to first say it's such a pleasure to be with you today, Dianna. You already know I'm a big fan of yours. I will tell you that when I, in 2009, had my ex-wife come to me and say, out of nowhere to me, I don't love you anymore and I don't want to be married, that hit me like a building falling down, and I didn't really gather the true full weight of that for some time. But then that sent me into a space of really examining myself as a leader. And quite frankly, I thought I was actually being a good leader. I was doing a turnaround for a company at that particular time, and having been in the space for 17 years, 15 at that time, and I began to realize that my leadership skills in the business world were actually pretty good, and they were getting better, but my leadership skills at home were far from that. And then I began to realize, you know what? While this feels like a setback, maybe this is actually a setup for something more, right? I could actually become more, to your point. But I had to really sit with that for a while and do a lot of deep inward thinking and continuing to read about leadership and what does it look like to lead not only in the marketplace, but lead at home. And so I left that space because I saw that it was owning me. It was controlling me. And I was doing it, as you already know this, but I didn't really have the full understanding of that at that time. I was doing it because I was addicted to approval. And in the marketplace, I got lots of approval all the time. I got lots of applause for the things that I did, for the records that I set, for the businesses that I helped to achieve. But I didn't do a good job at that at home. So I left that because I needed to spend some time looking at myself, realizing eventually through John Maxwell's team and growing as a leader, okay, you know what? I can help others avoid some of the pitfalls that I did as a marketplace leader by becoming a coach. And so
how hard was it? How hard was it? I mean, literally to look in the mirror. I wanted to stop there because I know where we're going with coaching, and I love you as a coach and all that you've been able to do. Yet let's just ponder that thought. I don't know about you. Sometimes I look in the mirror, I don't like what I see.
I agree. It was very, very hard for me to actually understand it first, Diana, because when you're used to having everybody else give you applause, But the very
Hmm.
place where you actually want to get the most applause, which is in your home, I did not receive it. That was really difficult for me to, first of all, receive. So I didn't want to receive it at
Yeah.
first. I wanted to actually deny it. But when I was honest with myself and I began to actually inquire of the Lord, I began to say, "Hey, Jesus, what do you say about this?" That was when, in the journaling, I discovered the truth, which is what Andrea is saying. That's my ex-wife. What she's saying is actually accurate. You
Mm.
you care more about applause than you do about leading your family. And I began to also realize that that tug, the tug from the balance of the home life and the marketplace life, I saw how imbalanced they were. And again, didn't know this. This was God's kindness setting me up for how I could coach other leaders who struggle with this a lot. And you and I both know that. But
Yeah.
it was very difficult. It took about 2 years for me to actually sit through and work through that. I'm slow at things. That's probably why it took 2 years. But I
They
definitely
say
got
it
after
takes 2 years.
it.
Yeah. No, they say it takes 2 years after a divorce to really bounce back, to be who you are, or 2 years from a setback. And a lot of people, they go, well, I don't like how you acted when this happened. And I go, if they understood psychological damage, so to speak, or when you feel a sudden betrayal like you did with your wife, it is literally, they say 2 years if you're good, it can be up to 5 years for some people. And when you said setback to set up, well, you've got a beautiful wife, Lynn, who I
Yes.
absolutely love. And
Thank you.
so everything always sets us up when we're willing to do that. So it set you up to coach people.
Mhm.
And you've helped hundreds of high capacity leaders over the last 12 years. So what are the biggest challenges that you're seeing people have out there in the leadership role today?
Oh, that's such a great question, Diana. And I love that you asked that. Just this morning, for instance, I was having a conversation with a young man that was referred to me, entering the marketplace as a new young man and already struggling with that unique balance of
Yeah.
who he is as a person, who he has to, who he thinks he has to, there's the key word, who he thinks he's supposed to be or how he has to perform or what he needs to look like at the mark in the marketplace. And then what is he used to looking like in front of his friends and actually already on a deep dark dive of trying to cope with that and recognizing this is not sustainable. And so I would say that what I often see is many of myself included, right? There were years of undetected wounds, undetected blind spots that affect our ability to lead and lead well, and not even recognizing that from afar, because oftentimes we don't have an inner circle. We don't have a coach or a mentor or somebody that is in our sphere of our, as we both know, we're a reflection of the 5 people we spend the most time with. And so if those 5 people aren't good people, right, it's not going to be a lot of stuff coming out. And so I had 0 people, quite frankly. I thought I could do it all. So that is still a common thing. A lot of us think that self-reliance is going to get it done.
Right.
And we don't want to look at ourselves if it's something that actually we need to either acknowledge is not healthy or not good or not all that awesome. And I need to sit with that and work on it. So I do see a lot of leaders who are struggling with actually um, with imposter syndrome. That's still very notable. Struggling with leading from their strengths, acknowledging their blind spots, and also acknowledging that they need a mind, they need a shift in their mindsets. That's what I would also say.
Well, in the blind spots, we all have them. And that's why a coach really helps us to find those blind spots. Yet I want to go back to identity for a minute, because were you ever wrapped up in your identity being who you were at work versus who you were as a person?
Yeah, I would say that it's interesting that you say it that way, Dinah, because back to the applause and the approval addiction, which that's a real thing, and I believe it's
Yeah.
as rampant as approval. I mean, sorry, alcohol addiction, I would say, or drug
Right.
addiction. It's very common. A lot of people aren't used to it. What's interesting is that I would say I had three identities, interestingly enough. The identity that I
Hmm.
had at home,
Yeah.
uh, and grew up in, but also became my home. The identity that I had at church as a leader, who that person was, and then the identity that I had in the marketplace. And of course, I spent the majority of my time in the marketplace. So that was with my own entity and my team and my employees and my staff. And I realized that a lot of the disconnection that I had at home was because I had made myself the center of the business itself, unknowingly making me the way that everything passes through, so that when people came to me, I knew the answers. And even though I was struggling with managing my time and feeling overwhelmed with too much, the payoff underneath that unknowingly was, hey, I'm the source of all the answers. People are like, yay, Sky, you solved this for us. Or my clients, which were many, many law firms all over the United
Mm.
States. Wow, you helped me get ready for trial. I wouldn't have been able to go to trial if you, or this deposition, or we won this case because your team, you and your team helped us get ready. And so that was a drug for me, the approval. Why? Because I did not have that growing up. I desperately lacked it, needed it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it fueled a lot of that. And same thing happened at church when I would teach or lead or do things. I would naturally fall into being chosen to lead things. I would say yes to too many things. And in that, neglected my family, which many leaders do. You've heard that story.
That's
But
right.
there's a payoff in it for us. There's an identity crisis that occurred for me, and it really happened in 2009 when I told you about that statement my ex-wife made. That was when it really happened. I just didn't know it. And so I think that is very common for many leaders, is there's a disconnect, and it shows up in various ways, and it's a blind spot, to your point, and we need a guide. I needed a guide. I didn't have one for a long time.
Hmm. Yeah, well, without a guide, we get lost in ourselves. And I think you brought up about the identity. You had three different identities, yet you lost one of those, and that's where you got your approval from. And the interesting part to me is how you used that with an addiction. And I think that, well, I know having many, many coaches, and people would come up to the coaches and to myself and say, oh, you changed my life. And we know we may have said something or helped them with something, yet they had to make the decision that
Yes.
they changed their life. Yet how easy is it to be caught up in that of, oh, wow, I did that. Oh, wow, look at how great I am. And now all of a sudden you don't have that.
Mhm.
Wow,
Yeah,
set you back.
it sure does. Sure does. Especially when, as you might think, I definitely will say that during the 2 years where I was working through the things that I needed to work on, that I mentioned, I was still leading this company. And so, and honestly, it was actually good therapy for me, being with my team and being able to help
Yeah.
lead them. And it also reflected back, and I could see things that I continued to need to work on, because I was noticing areas where I could help my staff grow as leaders, because that was a very big deal to me then. As I mentioned, from 2009 to 2011, when I was going through this metamorphosis and transformation that led towards me becoming a coach. And so I had a lot of fun in that, but it also was super helpful for me, because while I was there, I had other people around, I was leading. Going home was very difficult. And so then I would have to sit with it and journal with what I said earlier, like, Jesus, what do you say about this? What are the things that I am still struggling with, where my self reliance wants to kick in? I say that I want to trust you, God, to lead me, and yet as I've shared with others, I would put God on the shot clock, and I would go, okay, I haven't seen something yet, and so I'm just going to take over like I'm used to doing and try to run with this, and I had to just continue to work through that aspect as well, Dianna.
I'm curious, how many people have you seen? Because I've seen this in coaching where a lot of people, they'll create problems because they want to be the superhero that solves them. And they don't even realize that they're creating a lot of those problems as a self-fulfillment for them to come through and feel like they've done something worthwhile. Have you seen that in the coaching world?
Yes. I guess I see it in the coaching world. Let me make sure I clarify. Are you saying that the clients that I work with, that's one of the areas that they're struggling with?
Yeah,
Or are you talking
maybe
about coaches?
maybe not. Thank you so much. Maybe not so much the clients you work with, yet out in the field, I found many leaders, they desired to be the superhero. And so
Oh,
they would actually start creating problems so they could swoop in and save the day, so to speak. So everyone felt like, wow, we just need you so much. They needed to be needed.
yeah, that's definitely out there for sure. And I think that, uh, the way that you describe that, creating a need to be an urgent care center, for instance, where you're the doctor at the urgent care center, right? Uh, that's an analogy that I see. And honestly, believe it or not, as a leader before I became a coach, while I wouldn't have described that I thought I was creating chaos, I certainly had created a system and a business whereby everything ran through me, and so I didn't have control of my schedule. And as you
Mm,
know, our good friend Mr. John Maxwell tells us that our calendar should start with me, right? And it did start with me, but not the right way. It started with everybody else that came through me, and so I would say that there is the payoff in that for people, right? It doesn't
that's
sound,
right.
it doesn't make sense to do that, but it's really true. It's actually feeding a deep payoff that's underlined that they actually don't even realize that that's why they're doing it, and it's dysfunctional, right? It's unhealthy, but it's done because it's filling a reservoir that in their mind needs to be filled as a leader, or to be valued, or to be loved, or to be needed. All those types
That's
of
right.
things. I would agree. Yes.
Yeah, well, you've helped so many people in so many ways as you've coached them. What are some of the things that you're finding out there without naming your clients? I know you would never do that, or without sharing anything that's personal to them over the 12 years, because we've had clients come and go.
Mhm.
What's the common theme or a common thread, though, that you're finding in this tapestry called leadership?
Ah, well, you know what's interesting is, and you and I have talked about this offline in the past. What's still interesting to me is that today, in the world where the ability for anybody to tap into leadership development, healthy leadership development, I could go online right now and I can get whatever I want that I'm curious about to grow as a leader. It's readily available. And
Right.
yet, I still see a lot of bullying in the marketplace from leadership. I see
Mm,
a, I would like to call it somewhat of a uh, controlling, domineering, almost tyrannical leadership in some entities. And so calling that out is somewhat of a challenge, right? It's
right.
needed. It's needed. I look at it this way. It's just like when you asked me that question earlier. What was it like when you had to sit with those things, those discoveries? Uncomfortable, very uncomfortable. And
Yeah.
yet, I can honestly say it was actually the kindness of the Lord that led me to have to do that. So I see as a coach, whether a person is a Christ follower or not, when they work with me, many are not, I see it as it is the kindness of the Lord that leads me to bring this up, to create
Mm,
an awareness to this type of leadership style, which is very, very unhealthy for teams. You and I can agree, right? It's a lot
right.
easier to develop and grow the people that you have that are loyal to you than to constantly be having to replace them because you can't keep them. It's a lot easier to have people raising their hand, hoping they can come and work at your company than having to spend all that money to go out and find people and
That's
sit
right.
through interviews and interviews. So
Absolutely.
yet that type of leadership is still highly prevalent in many entities. And I still shake my head at that because when I ask if I have the opportunity to work with leaders downstream and I ask them to talk to me about things that are a struggle or a challenge as it relates to the culture, none of them enjoy that. Nobody goes, I'm so excited that I'm scared to death to come in here today. I'm so excited that I hope that my manager doesn't come into my office and ask me any questions. I'm super excited that I don't have to go to that meeting today. I mean, that's literally
Right.
selfish. So I would tell you that still surprises me. What about you?
Well, no, we've all had leaders like that. If you don't do what I say, and then it literally makes it to where you come across the same way because you've got to do certain things in order to keep your job. It makes it very challenging when culture is out of whack. And I know that you've done a lot of things with your people to help them become aware. And awareness is the first step to change. In fact, one of the things you've been using recently is the mindset assessment.
Mhm.
And you've become very, very keen on how important that mindset is. What are you finding out there when you first start working with someone on their mindset? Do they truly understand what's going on in their unconscious mind, or do you have to bring it to their attention?
Wow. That is a super good question. I need to think about that for just a moment. Without just giving you my first thing out of my head. I think that two things. I think for somebody like me who had the pleasure of taking your mindset, I actually was excited to see what it would reveal to me that I didn't know, but I was definitely prepared to go, oh, wow, this is going to be fun. Now, for somebody who's not used to thinking that way, yeah, I need to actually guide them down a path where they can appreciate and value how the way that they approach and what's here certainly affects the way that they perceive, lead, don't lead, execute, don't execute,
Yeah.
attack or avoid, all those types of things, right? Um, the enthusiasm or the lack of, all those types of things, what's really going on, so that they can then go, oh, wow, okay, so these are the truths about, these are the qualities that show up that actually I can utilize in
Mhm.
my work to bring value to my work.
As you've gone through those mindset assessments with people and you read their superpower, how do
Mm.
they accept that?
Oh gosh, that's such a great question. So uh, recently, I was working with one of my clients, and what was wild was when I read her superpower myself, I thought, "Wow, I couldn't have described that any better." The
Yeah.
beautiful thing was that, hey, I'm going through this, and I said, "Would you mind if I just say this superpower over you?" So she was in another country when I was talking to her at this time, so I was talking to her just like I'm talking to you, Diana. And I was like, I said, "Just close your eyes," and I said, I just want you to just receive what I'm about to say to you." And so, even though she had read her superpower, she had gone through it, hearing it read to her and saying, "This is your superpower," it was spectacular because I could just see her donning her superpower cape, and I could see it is a her, by the way. I could see her going, yes, I receive that this is really true about me, and that this is how I lead.
That's see, that's fabulous to me. Why do you think it matters as a coach though to know their mindset, to know more about them personally to be able to coach them in business?
Oh my gosh, that's a beautiful question too. Not surprising you asked that question, Diana. So this is probably the easiest question you've asked, at least for me, because I get fired up about this. When I and I'll just back up. whenever I start to engage with somebody, and before they even say yes to me being their coach, I let them know that I'm fully expecting over the course of our journey together. By the way, I have clients that I coach right now. In fact, this morning I talked with one of them. I've been coaching him for 7 years, seven
Yeah.
consecutive years. So you can imagine over the course of 7 years, the number of questions that I've asked this person. I can't imagine, I don't even know how many it is. I meet with him twice a month. Um, and I know everything about his family. So what's the beautiful thing is that I let them know. I was like, hey, I just want you to know if this relationship continues, there's a good chance, and there's a reason why this needs to be true. I'm going to know more about you than probably anyone you know, very
Yeah.
likely, outside of your spouse,
That's
if you have
right.
a spouse. I will know you better. I'm a trusted advisor. I'm in your inner circle. And in order for me to coach you well, this goes back to the mindsets, it has to be that way. You have to be free to run naked with me in your thoughts and right and in your feelings. And that way, the reason the mindsets helps me is because when you're sharing and I notice something, it increases my noticing. It increases what I'm listening for. It increases the body language. It helps me to know whether they're actually being their true self or if there's something that's holding
Ooh,
them back, right? And you and I both
that's
know that in the noticing and in the listening, if something's holding them back, that's an opportunity for us to explore. And so knowing those mindsets gives me a greater ability to navigate, lead, guide, challenge, ask questions, all those things that I wouldn't have available to me had I not known those. It's
well,
almost like
you've helped.
I have a view into the secret, right? The secret beneath in the cranium. I'm like, this is what's really there that they haven't even been able to express or even taken the time to discover for themselves.
Well, when you read your own, how accurate would you say it is from 10% to 100%?
Oh,
What
good.
would you say?
I would say 98% for sure, including like I don't know if you've done a podcast where you go over all the nomenclatures that you created, but I was super fired up when I saw mine. I was like, yeah, that feels good. I love it. I love the descriptors. I love the superpower. Hopefully, when people, if they were to hear that, they go, yeah, that's you. That's for sure you. So, yeah, I
Yeah.
would say it was wildly accurate.
Well, and the greatest part about it is knowing what fuels people energetically and what drains their energy, especially as a coach to help people with that. So I'm curious, with all the people that you have coached, what is it that some of them, they have so much success, yet you're finding that they just seem to be unfulfilled?
Oh, whew. So this is again, it's interesting to me the way the Lord works through this. So again, this morning I had a client, and I haven't been working with this client very long, and so we're still in the. I'm starting to understand all the levels that are there. Very early on in my coaching journey with my clients, I asked them to do a document for me, and I have this document myself. I read it every day in my journal, and it's called a Purpose, Dreams, and Desire document. And you might not be shocked by this, by Dianna, but I told him, I was like, hey, in a room of 100 leaders like you might be shocked how few know what their purpose is, that they could
Mm,
describe their purpose to me. I said, and that's okay. But understanding your purpose, right? And understanding if you think about your purpose as a funnel and what you're allowing in and recognizing, hey, this is what matters for me. This helps to help me make decisions about what I will say yes and no to, and what the most important values that I have are, and where I'm headed. And so I would say that that part of the exploration is always one of my favorite parts, because when I understand that, now I can further, right, guide them towards what success means for them, not me, and aligns with their true purpose. And that
so
fires me
good.
up. Fires me up, Dianna.
Yeah. Well, and That's what I've noticed about you is you talk about the people, you've never shared names or anything. You talk about people's success. And by them being aware of their strengths, of their weaknesses, of those blind spots that they obviously had no awareness of, you've helped them move forward. And that's what coaches do. So let me ask you, as far as every listener out there, if they could walk away and implement just one thing, one habit that you say, if you do this, your life is dramatically going to improve, what would you share with them?
You're it's actually very simple. I call it a pit stop. Implement a pit stop. Now it could be journaling. It could be taking 10 minutes several times a day to take a pit stop. And I'll just use this analogy very quickly. If you were a race car driver and I was your crew chief, right? I was running you and you were driving your Ferrari and you were winning your race. And every day you're running a race, and that's how it felt for me. And let's just pretend it's an Indianapolis 500. It's 500 miles. Over the course of the race, you probably need to take a pit stop. But if you're the race car driver, you don't ever want to stop because you are 225 miles an hour, Dianna, and you're the very best one, right? So you're in first place because that's why you drive. You're in first place. And then I go over the radio and I go, hey, Dianna, I need you to take a pit stop. And you're like, what? I don't want to take a pit stop. I'm winning. I'm like, yeah, but here's what I know. I've been watching the last three laps. You've been slowing down. Your tires are getting worn. When you run around the curve, turn number 4, 2 laps ago, you grazed the wall. It's slowing you down. And so the person in second place is starting to catch up with you. I need you to come in and take a pit stop, and I need you to come to a full stop, because when we take a pit stop, we're going 0 miles an hour. And that's what most leaders don't do during the day. They don't stop to let their thinking catch up with them. The pit stop allows my thinking to catch up with me. I can refuel. I can make adjustments. I can think about conversations that I had earlier today that I blew right through, and I forgot to say, oh, wow, Dianna, thank you so much for buying my coffee today. I blew right out of your office, and I didn't even thank you for that coffee. Or maybe we met at a coffee shop. Oh, you know what? I should probably reach out to this person, or I need to. Slowing down for the pit stop to 0 miles an hour allows us to make those changes that can allow us to actually go faster.
Good.
Slowing down allows me to go faster. And that is the wildest thing. And so if we did that a couple of times a day, things would be different.
You know, that reminds me of a story, and this is more about investing in yourself. In fact, I have a saying, invest in yourself till you're the most expensive thing that you own, right? And a lot of people, they don't invest in themselves. They don't stop long enough. Abraham Lincoln said, if I had to cut down a tree and I had 5 hours to do it, I'd spend 4 hours sharpening that blade, right? Off and on throughout those 5-hour period of time. And I think a lot of people, they just, I've got this all figured out. I'm the only one, right? I'm the superhero. I'm the leader. I got to be there for everybody and everything. And they forget that they too have to go take leadership classes, that they too have to go get fed by a coach or someone that helps them. I don't like the word accountable, holding them accountable. I like holding them able to do the job at a higher rate. And that's what you do. So we just thank you so much. Is there anything that you wish I would have asked you that I failed to ask you?
You didn't ask me if I was going to run for president of the United States in the next election. I wish you would have asked me that. No.
Okay, so I figured that was no, because you wouldn't want to bring all of that stuff on your family, because they'll hunt stuff up, man. They'd get that ex-wife back out.
That's for sure. It would get too ugly too quickly. Yes, that's right.
Oh, so fun. So let's think about some of the things, though, that we've learned here that will help us become more. That a setback can actually be a setup for a greater life. That leadership skills, you've got to have them in business. And if you don't have them, go find them. Get a coach to help keep you able to do your job. And realize that if you have an addiction for approval, just like alcohol addiction, find out what addictions you might have and work through those. That to struggle for that unique balance is pretty normal. And that we find that with many, many people, that home, church, marketplace, let's be great in all of those areas. And of course, bullying and controlling, let's throw that out the window. But more importantly, I love when you said, find your purpose and take pit stops throughout the day. Sky, you've helped so many of us become more today. You may want to listen to this a couple of times, maybe 3 times, and be certain to find out what your mindset is as well. And of course, Sky, you would coach them on that mindset assessment. We've been through it many times, and I know you'd be willing to, once they received it back, to go through it with them and spend an hour or 2, whatever they desire. And thank you so much for being with us today.
Love
It's
being
been
here,
such a
Dianna.
pleasure.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you
Thank
so very
you.
much.